Hi guys, and welcome to the 4-8 notes, the quadratic formula, and the discriminant. I'm going to be doing these in a few different parts, the most essential one being this here, talking about what we call the quadratic formula. Okay, and this formula is used to solve any standard form quadratic equation. We looked at different ways to solve, but this is the equation of the day. It looks scary, but I promise it's not too bad. X equals, ready, negative b, that's not all, plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4a times c all over 2a. You're like, what? Okay, it really is not that bad. I won't ask you to memorize it just yet, but we'll be using it many, many times. There's also little videos online if you want to check those out, helping people remember negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That is the quadratic formula. Now the key thing is you must be in standard form with your quadratic in order to use it. Okay, this guy up here, he came up with this thing many years ago, before Siri and before iPhones and everything. He'll be talked about in the extras. But anyway, let's get to using this quadratic equation. It might be helpful to write it on the next page and just to get used to it. Okay, so first off, let's say it again. It's negative b plus or minus, I would write this up top, square root b squared minus 4, always 4, times your a value times your c value all over 2 times a. Again, it only works for standard form. So basically, I'm just going to run through all these examples with it because it takes a lot of practice. Okay? So x squared minus 6x. Again, first, we need it in standard form. So standard form means you have the x squared. You have then your x term, and then you have a constant equal to 0. Must be equal to 0. Okay, so we just get this equal to 0. We subtract 6x. We add 4. And x squared minus 6x plus 4 is equal to 0. It is now in standard form. Now what is best to do here? Notice we need to identify our a, b's, and c's. So a is 1. Remember, that's in front of x squared. B, we'll say is blue, is negative 6. And C is positive 4. So that really does help. Seems silly. But again, we're going to use the formula now. Alright, and it's really not too hard. So it's the opposite of B. Here's the key thing. It's always negative B, which is negative 6, plus or minus square root b squared, and a b squared is negative 6 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 4, all over 2 times a, which is 1. This is the key thing here. If you can set it up, the rest is simplifying, and this is where all of our square root practice and everything comes into play. First off, negative 6 becomes a positive 6, plus or minus square root. You can certainly type this in your calculator, but I'll show you step by step. That's going to be 36 minus 16 all over 2. Okay, looks a little cleaner. Let's clean it up more. 6 plus or minus square root of 20 all over 2. And here's our square root work. Square root of 20 is really square root of 4 times square root of 5 plus or minus 6 all over 2. And one more time, so it's all about cleaning it up here. 6 plus or minus 2 roots of 5 over 2. And if you really want to be fancy, one more time, you can notice 6, 2, and 2 each have a nice factor. You can make it 3 plus or minus root of 5, technically over 1. It may seem like a lot. I know you're like, oh my goodness, it took us a minute or two to go through that. But it gives us every single solution to the quadratic. Okay, and really it's all about using the formula. Alright, use the formula. Alright, and practice it. Here's an easier one, P1. It's already in standard form. Already good to go. Why? Because it's set equal to 0. It's already good. Okay, but do identify your A, B's, and C's. A is 1. B is -4. C is -5. We're going to want to substitute into the formula. So negative B plus or minus square root B squared, that's a -4 squared, minus 4 times A times C, and all over 2 times 1. Once you set it up, it's simplifying. So -4 is +4, plus or minus square root. -4 squared is 16, minus, let's see here, 4 times 1 times -5 gives you a -20. We'll see what happens there. All over 2 times 1. Okay. From here now, this is where I say be careful. You have 4 plus or minus square root. This minus a negative, okay, is really going to be a positive. So we have the square root of 36 all over 2. And here's where some more neat stuff happens. You should recognize, hey, 36 is really just 6 over 2. And from this step, notice here we have this funky radical. So notice we have the radical of 5. Here we have a nice number. If you have this nice number, we can just go ahead and separate this into 2 problems. Really, this is saying 4 plus 6 over 2 is a solution, and 4 minus 6 over 2, well, 4 plus 6 is 10, meaning x equals 5. 4 minus 6 is -2, meaning x equals -1. It just gets a little trickier. Again, it's all about practicing. I will be content if you can come to class tomorrow and set up the formula. Okay, simplifying is all from before. All right, so awesome stuff. That's kind of the very basics. Again, using the formula. The essential question, I'll write it here, is what form must a quadratic be in order to use the formula? Okay, so that will be part 1. I will go over some more examples here next, but be able to identify and set up the quadratic formula.